We are in the midst of a homeless crisis, and we'll be discussing that in this program. Also, have you ever heard of the National Council of Negro Women and its importance to you, or your sister, or your mother, or your wife? Later in this program, Doriel Larrier will be joining me to discuss that. But first, the homeless crisis that's affecting thousands of Brooklyn residents. I'm pleased to welcome my guest, Walter Mosley. Oops, why is that name familiar? Walter, welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for having me. Happy New Year to you, your staff, and to your viewers.
Okay. New York City has approximately 50,000 homeless people, and they're living in shelters. Then we have about 30,000 in family shelters. You're going to tell me what those family shelters are, and then so many of them are in the subway. Why do we have this crisis?
Well, as you said, my name is probably familiar to some of the viewers you have because I did serve in the New York State Legislature for close to a decade. I served on a housing committee for that period of time. And when I was in office, we were always talking about we have an affordable housing crisis. And what we didn't do has now resulted in what we have today, which is a homeless crisis, because the key word is home. And if you don't make housing affordable, there's only but so much tripling and doubling up that people can do. And when you don't deal with other ancillary issues that lead people to homelessness, whether it's through alcohol or drug dependency, domestic violence, mental health, you get a scenario like this. And this is not an aberration to New York. We're not an aberration. This is happening across our country. In Los Angeles, Chicago,
yes,
Atlanta, Detroit, cities that have become attractions to people who are hurt and who need help. Because once we all know that once a person becomes homeless, it's almost impossible for them to get out of that situation by themselves. So they need the necessary assistance. And I think we've seen it over the past several administrations that we all have good intentions, but it's the execution where we're lacking.
What do we need to execute?
Well, I think, I had to applaud the current administration. Eric Adams understands that you got to deal with this from a multi-pronged effect. You got to deal with the bureaucracy, which slows down, development. You have to deal with people who are homeless and living on their streets. In a metropolis like New York, the capital of the world, we should not be seeing such homelessness at such a rate. And then you have to put the policy to match the intentions. And that means the money and resources to make it easier for developers to build at a pace that will eventually catch up and pass the level and rate of homelessness and those who are living on the verge of homelessness.
What services are there for people who have lost their jobs? That's one of the reasons why there is so much homelessness.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why people lose their jobs. Lose their home or housing. And that's just one of the factors in terms of unanticipated economic downturn that someone might have. But like I said, it could be domestic violence related. 80% of all women who are homeless because they've been emotionally or physically or sexually abused. You're talking about unaccompanied minors, which is on the rise. Young people who have been thrown out of their homes, who have been abandoned by their families. So you're talking about veterans. You're talking about seniors. You're talking about young families. So it's a multitude of things that make up this unfortunate population that we have here in New York City and throughout our country. So that's why it's not as I wish it was just that factor, losing one's job, but unfortunately, it's not. It's a multi-pronged problem, which requires a multi-pronged resolve in an effort to come up with a palatable solution for all to benefit from.
Now, you are a lobbyist, and I'm sure that you're also lobbying many elected officials. This is 2023. What can be done? What must be done?
I hear the right things, but we've heard it with we heard it with de Blasio administration when he talked about building 200,000 units of affordable housing. We heard it with Bloomberg building or preserving 175,000 units of affordable housing with these inclusionary zones that he created to make it easier for developers to gain tax benefits, to build at a cheaper rate. So the rhetoric has always been there, but the outcomes have not. Because if the outcomes would have matched the rhetoric, we wouldn't be in the position we are today. And it's unfortunate because so many people like myself who were raised in the city, who were born there, many of us can't even afford to live in our own communities. And not to say that we can't afford a $4,000 apartment. Unfortunately, some of us can and many of us can't because that's where we are. But why am I going to perpetually be a renter and making someone else rich? And so a lot of people leave the city because they can't buy a home. Because ultimately, if you have ownership, you have generational wealth or generational capital, the likelihood of you becoming homeless falls immensely. So, I would like to see more ownership involved in these because if you own something, the likelihood of you becoming homeless compared to those who rent is astronomical in terms of the gap between the two. So I hope that the rhetoric matches the results, but ultimately, you want to make sure that people have their own future and the plight of their future in their own hands through ownership. And to me, I think you can see across the country as people lost ownership of homes and property, we see more and more people become homeless.
Well, ownership is one way, but of course, you own a home and you can't afford that home because of the economics that we talked about earlier, and there's so many other reasons. But how do we really move beyond the rhetoric? And we're hearing the rhetoric already. But how do we move beyond that?
Well, I think it goes back to what you talked about, that example of someone losing their home, right? The economics and the economic gap that we live in a place like New York City, where you have the largest gap probably since World War II, or since the Great Depression, I should say, I'm sorry, right now in New York. More and more people are leaving the city, people who have income, who have growing families, who would love to purchase a home but can't afford a $3 million brownstone, who can't and yet don't want to pay for a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment, which could range between $4,000 and $5,000, money that you won't see the benefits of because it's going into someone else's pocket to pay their commercial mortgage for the building that they own. But to me, I think that ultimately we have to make rigorous investments perpetually over the next 3-4 years, because if we don't, the growing chasm between the haves and the have-nots, and this is what I do agree about the Blasio administration, when we have a tale of two cities, unfortunately, that tale of those two cities is getting wider and wider and wider with each passing day. So a budget is about your priorities. And we have to understand that it's great. You want to say you want to build or preserve affordable housing, or you want to create hundreds of units of affordable housing. But if it's not reflective in your state and municipal budgets, then it's just rhetoric.
We've been hearing about affordable housing lotteries. What are these lotteries?
Well, this is a system that I've never agreed with. Putting your future and the future of your family in the hands of a lottery, just the concept alone makes me uncomfortable, because, it's bad enough that, we take a chance with trying to get home loans in an effort to secure a mortgage to purchase a home. But now you have families who might not be as, that might not have the level of earnings to secure a mortgage. And yet now you're asking them to rely upon a lottery to live somewhere. It's not like you can't say, I want to live here. Let me look for an apartment here in this area because I like the schools, I like the hospital there. I have to go somewhere where by chance someone hopefully picks my name out of a basket or whatever, or through a computer algorithm that would allow for me to live somewhere where I might not want to live. I think it's just bad policy. I think it's something that, thankfully, when my mom was a single-headed household, raising two children on a teacher's salary back in the 60s and 70s, she was able to pick a community, rely upon the state and their Mitchell-Lama program, which is a state subsidized program, that, she was able to raise me and my sister in a safe, decent, affordable 2-bedroom apartment that she still lives in till this very day. But if in absence of that, I don't know where we would have lived in New York City, if we would have been able to live in New York City at all, if we didn't have that opportunity. So those are the opportunities we have to present. Treat these renters with the level of decency and respect that they think they need and deserve for themselves and their families, and to remove this lottery system, because to me, to put someone's future and the future of their children up to chance that they can live somewhere or live somewhere where they don't want to, I think is deplorable. It's bad policy.
We've got 2 minutes left. You find somewhere to live. You're still going to have a landlord, and many landlords are now evicting low-income tenants.
Yeah.
How can we what can we do about this landlord situation?
Well, I remember back in 2000, I believe 16, when we passed a slew of tenant protection acts in the state. And the one that was not included was the Good Cause Eviction Act, which allows for landlords to be evicted for no cause. That if the landlord feels like, you're not a good tenant, or if the sky is green and they disagree with you, you can evict them. And it happens so often in the city because people don't have the resources to fight it. It happens all throughout New York State because there aren't as many provisions protecting tenants, and the resources are minimal at best when you talk about other cities like Syracuse, Albany, Rochester, Buffalo. So it really comes down to, seeing if we can pass that good cause eviction bill this year in the legislature, and to get it before the governor to sign into law. Because again, the governor wants to create all this affordable housing, but if you still have poor public policy, it can be counterintuitive to what you're ultimately trying to do, and that's close the gap of affordability and close the numbers when it comes to homelessness.
We've got 30 seconds left. What is your advice, your last word in 30 seconds to our viewers?
I say, remain diligent in terms of making sure that your state legislative representative at the Senate and in the Assembly are contact and let them know that you want this good cause eviction bill passed in both houses and signed by the governor. And ultimately, you want to make sure that the money that she's allocated actually hits communities where you live and where you want to live, because ultimately that will be able to show the final outcome was the desired outcome.
Walter Mosley, thank you very much for being our guest on Brooklyn 45, and I know we're going to be talking to you later in the year.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. Look forward to it. God bless you.
Okay. All right. God bless you. Thank you, Walter Mosley. Now to the National Council of Negro Women. What is this organization? What does it do for women? Doriel Larrier, thank you for joining us here on Brooklyn 45.
Thank you for having me. The National Council of Negro Women, yes, an 88-year-old organization, began by the Dr. Mayor McLeod Bethune, who is a staunch advocate for education and an activist, is a leader for women and children and families around the issue of education. So approximately 90 years ago, she wanted to start a school for girls for young women, because girls were not able to go to colleges and education after high school. And so she said, well, if the organizations will not allow our girls in, then I'll actually build one for myself. And so with $1.50, yes, $1.50, and selling sweet potato pies, she actually started her own school, which now is called the Bethune-Cookman College. And with about 6 or 7 girls and her son, she actually started to educate women around not just what was appropriate at that time in terms of like formalized education, but in help in entrepreneurship, because as she started, she wanted other young women to start. And so I'm very proud to continue this legacy here in the Flatbush section of Brooklyn, to continue that same idea for our community.
This college that she started, where is it located?
It's in Florida. So it's now the Bethune-Cookman College.
And you invite young people from Brooklyn and from all over the United States to be part of this college, to be students in this college.
Well, I mean, that's the school that she started. So whoever it is that is interested in going, if we have young people in our community who are interested in going to that school, then that's fine. But we, of course, will encourage young people to attend whatever post-secondary institution that they'd like.
Yes. Now, you are section president, and you said that section is here in Flatbush. Talk a little about this Flatbush section of the National Council of Negro Women.
So the Flatbush section of the National Council of Negro Women is one of 3 currently running sections. There is the Brooklyn section, Flatbush, which I'm the section president, and Midwood and vicinity. Our section, and we don't necessarily have border lines, but whosoever who lives in the Flatbush area is, of course, invited to participate. We carry on the spirit of our pillars, which include promoting a focus on science, technology, engineering, and math. We encourage entrepreneurship, financial literacy, and economic stability, as well as health and wellness. So with our monthly meetings that we, work on projects and programs, as well as holding special events around these issues, in addition to voter registration, which of every civic organization should be involved in, we make sure that we not only inform our community about what is available, we encourage them to participate, and we activate a spirit, a spirit of social justice within the people in our community to participate.
We don't hear the word Negro used a lot these days. We use the term Black, Black men, Black women, but you've held on to the term Negro women. Now speak about the importance of Negro women.
So I will say that even when I came into the organization, I was sort of raised an eyebrow about why we're still utilizing that. But keep in mind that part of our story is the transformation of naming of being named and deciding to hold on to names that have been given. And so there has to be a sense of pride in the transformation of our identity. And so the organization continues to utilize that term so that we don't necessarily erase how far we've come and where we are today.
You are an educational network, you say, and it's called, I think, Learning to Grow You. Talk about this Learning to Grow You.
So Learn to Grow You LLC, actually, that is my own personal business that during this year is actually at 21 years. So I'm very proud of that morphism of it. It started because as an educator, I wanted to be able to take the information that I have and expand it outside of the walls that I walked in and out of every day. And so one would say approximately 20 something years ago, I said, well, I've worked with children from birth through and I wanted to provide educators and also parents opportunities to advocate for the students and the children that they work and love, that they love, on things that they may not necessarily get from the 8 to 2:30 or 8 to 3 o'clock. And so that started with just supplementing instructional, what we would call instructional moves, but then it also wound up being teacher education and professional development. And then as I grew into administration within the educational field, I said, wow, you know, some people who want to morph their educational environments and enhance them and make them better, I provided that consultation for them.
You talk about enlightening young minds. How important is that for Black women, Negro women, but Black women today, especially for those of us who are in the college system?
That's a big question. So let's begin with the end in mind. I always am a proponent of what do you want, whether it is the family, the community, what it is that you want for your young people to be able to do. Now, whether it is within a content area, like an academic area, whether it is in a trades area, I guess, community service area, whatever that thing is, then you obviously have to expose the person and nurture that person, but also provide mentors. So within the work that I do for National Council of Negro Women, as well as myself as an educator, I do the best that I can to expose young people to things that they may not have been exposed to prior, in addition to connecting mentors or advisors or counselors or what have you that can continue to nurture those experiences.
How do you attract women in the Flatbush area to the National Council of Negro Women?
By walking tall. By walking tall. I have the blessed opportunity to be a part of a number of different organizations, my church, which is in Flatbush, my actual neighborhood, which is in the Flatbush area. I'm a proud Brooklyn College alum, and so that I represent that as well. That which I do, I do the best to show up in places and spaces, let people know, you know, what I'm connected to. And when they see the light that shines within, they'll ask questions and then I give answers and I direct them to the organization that I'm proud to be a section president of.
What challenges do you face in growing your organization?
There are a number of organizations that do similar work. And so depending on the demographic, depending on the interest level, depending on the activity level of the individual, they will find an organization that works best for them. We all are concerned about voter registration. We're all concerned about health. We're all concerned about education. And that which fits the time, the involvement level of people, you know, can bring them into an organization.
Your organization, the National Council of Negro Women, is also referred to as the organization of organizations. Expand on that.
So it was designed to be the umbrella group for a number of other organizations. So for example, let's say the Divine Nine, and so we're referring to fraternities and sororities. It could be, let's say like Order of the Eastern Star or Top Ladies of Distinction or any of the other, let's say civic organizations. So it provides an opportunity to host and bind together strength in numbers, in theory, in activity level, in energy, so that we can all work together towards the same thing. Again, a number of us are working on similar ideas, but when we come together and work together, we're not operating as what's a theme within our organization as individual fingers, but when we operate together as a tight fist, we have a stronger blow.
We've got 30 seconds left, and I'm going to give you the last word. What is the last word for the women in East Flatbush who you'd like to be a part of the National Council of Negro Women?
If you are interested in growing your local community, if you're interested in improving the health, the safety, the educational opportunities, the economic opportunities, the education for our young people who are going to continue to keep Flatbush going, then come on over to the National Council of Negro Women, and you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. Just type in NCNW Flatbush, and we will pop up and show up for you.
Okay, thank you, Doriel Larrier.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doriel Larrier. And to our viewers, we thank you for watching this program. We need you to partner with Brooklyn 45. You can do this in so many different ways. Remember, we are a 501c3 community TV organization, so that when you support us, our communities and you benefit as well. So please tell your friends and families and colleagues to watch our Brooklyn 45 programs on cable TV and on YouTube, and to support us to be a part of what we do. On behalf of our team, I'm Sam Taitt.
Brooklyn 45 is a 501c3 not-for-profit, and we welcome your support. Check out our website, brooklyn45.com, and feel free to donate or share it with your friends and family. Have any comments or questions? Send them to our Facebook, facebook.com/Brooklyn45TV. If you have any questions or topics you think we should cover next, shoot me an email over at brooklyn45tv@gmail.com. Thank you again for watching.